Claudian family was as yet undiminished, for he had admitted the children of Agrippa, Gaius, and Lucius into the house of the Caesars, and before they had yet laid aside the dress of boyhood, he had most fervently desired, with an outward show of reluctance, that they should be entitled princes of the youth, and be consuls elect. When Agrippa died, and Lucius Caesar, as he was on his way to our armies in Spain, and Gaius, while returning from Armenia and suffering from a wound, were prematurely cut off by destiny, or by their stepmother Livia's treachery, Drusus, too, having long been dead, Tiberius remained alone of the stepsons, and on him everything tended to centre. He was adopted as a son, as a colleague in empire, and a partner in the tribunician power, and paraded through all the armies, no longer through his mother's secret intrigues, but at her open suggestion. For she had gained such a hold on the aged Augustus that he drove out as an exile into the island of Planasia his only grandson, Agrippa Posthumus, who, though devoid of worthy qualities, and having only the brute courage of physical strength, had not been convicted of any gross offence. And yet Augustus had appointed Germanicus, Drusus's offspring, to the command of 8 legions on the Rhine, and required Tiberius to adopt him, although Tiberius had a son, now a young man in his house, but he did it that he might have several safeguards to rest on. He had no war at the time on his hands, except against the Germans, which was rather to wipe out the disgrace of the loss of Quinctilius Varus and his army, than out of an ambition to extend the empire, or for any adequate recompense. At home all was tranquil, and there were magistrates with the same titles. There was a younger generation sprung up since the victory of Actium, and even many of the older men had been born during the civil wars. How few were left who had seen the Republic. Thus the state had been revolutionized, and there was not a vestige left of the old sound morality. Stripped of equality, all looked up to the commands of a sovereign without the least apprehension for the present, while Augustus, in the vigour of life, could maintain his own position, that of his house, and the general tranquillity. When in advanced old age he was worn out by a sickly frame, and the end was near, and new prospects opened, a few spoke in vain of the blessings of freedom, but most people dreaded, and some longed for war. The popular gossip of the large majority fastened itself variously on their future masters. Agrippa was savage, and had been exasperated by insult, and neither in age nor experience in affairs was equal to so great a burden. Tiberius Nero was of mature years, and had established his fame in war, but he had the old arrogance inbred in the Claudian family, and many symptoms of a cruel temper, though they were usually repressed, occasionally broke out. He had also from earliest infancy been reared in an imperial house. Consulships and triumphs had been heaped on him in his younger days, even in the years which, on the pretext of seclusion, he spent in exile at Rhodes. He had had no thoughts but of wrath, hypocrisy, and secret sensuality. There was his mother, too, with a womanly caprice. The people must, it seemed, be subject to a female, and to 2 striplings, who for a while would burden, and some day tear apart, the state. While these and similar topics were discussed, the infirmities of Augustus increased, and some suspected guilt on his wife's part. For a rumour had gone around that a few months before he had sailed to Planasia on a visit to Agrippa Posthumus, with the knowledge of some chosen friends, and with one companion, Fabius Maximus, that many tears were shed on both sides, with expressions of affection, and that thus there was a hope of the young man being restored to the home of his grandfather. This, it was said, Maximus had divulged to his wife Marcia, she again to Livia. All was known to Caesar, and when Maximus soon afterwards died, by a death some thought to be self-inflicted, there were heard at his funeral wailings from Marcia, in which she reproached herself for having been the cause of her husband's destruction. Whatever the fact,